I guess it's 9 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda is election of vice chair. I guess we kind of forgot about that with Dunk's passing, and our usual, I think our policy requires that we elect a chair and vice chair first meeting in January of each year. So just in case I'm not around for one of these meetings coming up, it's wise if we appoint a vice chair to run until the end of the year. So I will open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Bill.
It could be anybody on this committee. It doesn't have to be a council rep.
It could be anyone on the committee, yes. That's my understanding. Yep.
Then I would nominate Councillor Statham.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Are you willing to stand, Ryan?
Yeah, that's no
Yes,
problem.
okay. So we have one nomination. Do I have any other nominations? I'll ask one more time. Any other nominations? If not, those nominations are closed and we have a vice chair. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. So I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as printed.
Jim?
I'll second it.
Second, Terry. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does any of the board members have a interest in wish to declare at this time? Seeing none, we'll go on to the minutes. Everybody's had a copy of the minutes, so I need if there's any questions, I guess now is the time. If not, I need a mover and a seconder for the motion to adopt the minutes.
Make that motion, Bill Henning.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Bill moved it, Terry seconded it. All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Business arising from the minutes. Are there anything that we need to talk about out of the minutes? If not, we'll go on to the financials. Everyone has had a copy of the financial report up to the end of September. Yeah. Pretty straightforward, but any questions? I guess we can try to answer them. Looks like no questions. Everything looks kind of in line. Anything you want to mention, Lee, in there or anything?
No, through the chair, I think they're pretty straightforward. You'll notice the big one there is the Kraft Hockeyville money obviously shows up on the balance sheet now. And the other thing is the drain and eave trough repair. Like I mentioned last meeting, that capital project has been completed. We just that bill hasn't been paid yet. So
not on the agenda, but I guess we probably should have a motion to adopt the financials as presented. I need a mover and a seconder for that.
I'll make a motion to accept the financials as submitted.
Okay, need a seconder?
I'll second. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Ryan? All in favor?
Yes.
Carried. New business. Skating club update. Jim? Is that you?
Yeah, the skating club is up and going. Members currently at 47, is down a bit from last year. Coaches, we got hired coaches, 2 young girls coming in from Mount Bridges on a regular basis. They're dry, but that's good. Young blood in, hopefully. And then the working with minor hockey, I guess the intro to hockey, they call it, is I think there's 52 kids, which had to be registered to Skate Canada, which we paid for. So that's up and going. That's pretty much it.
Any questions to Jim? If not, we'll go on to minor hockey update. Terry, you wanna go first?
Okay, just a quick minor hockey update. We got our season going. We got it started. Everything that seems to be going pretty good, pretty fluent. No issues with getting on and off the ice, none of that stuff. Working with Adam's guys is great, getting the boards in and out, getting the nets on, all that's going good. I think we're actually currently sitting somewhere around 200 kids registered. One issue that we did have is a couple weeks ago with how the rep hockey team selection goes versus the local league. We were tight with numbers to begin with, but we had enough to field 2 teams. But we had, once the rep team was selected, we had 4 kids drop out of the local league team. That resulted us in having to fold that local league team with only, I think it was down to 9 players. So that's a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Now, with that open ice time, I did let Adam know that we'd no longer need the Saturday at 4 to 5:30 and the Sunday night 8:30 to 10. I believe as per our contract, we are currently on the hook to cover the cost of that until the end of the season. But Kevin's here and he'd like to speak on behalf of that.
We might as well jump right in. Kevin, got the floor there. Maybe just share that microphone.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Kevin Summers. I'm currently the president of West Lorne Minor Hockey Association. As Terry said, on Sunday, October 1st, West Lorne Minor Hockey had to make the difficult decision to fold our U18 local league team. We were confident in the numbers in this age group would prevail for us to run a rep and a local league team. Our numbers were on the margin in September, but we had a lot of really good leads and some promising prospects that just ended up following through. We then had a few developments in the days leading to the announcing of the rep team's roster. We had some players that left to go play in unsanctioned hockey, and many that were going to leave if they were cut from the rep team. This would have left us with a rep team with a very small roster that wouldn't have been able to continue throughout the season, as well as I think it was only about 7 or 8 kids that would have been left for a local league. We tried looking at many different options, but unfortunately nothing materialized that would be feasible for us to run those 2 teams this year. Following the announcement, as Terry said, we reached out to Adam to let him know that we no longer required the Saturdays 4 to 5:30 and Sundays 8:30 to 10 ice times. Basically, we received a response to that cited the contract, that we were essentially on the hook unless the municipality could rent that ice to other users. I'm here, I guess, to plead with you guys to reevaluate this decision. From what it looks like, there may be a group that might be able to take in that Saturday ice time, but it's not confirmed. I don't foresee anybody really picking up that Sunday 8:30 to 10 ice time at this point. Should we have to cover those costs, Westland Minor Hockey is looking at around $13,000 in losses for that. We already have 17 ice times this year that are a conflict with teams being at away games or out at tournaments and stuff like that we kind of got to juggle our teams in and fill those ice times. Most of those 17 will get covered by other teams, but we do have a handful, 3 or 4 that won't. So we're looking at trying to get some of our on ice volunteers and stuff like that so that we don't have dead ice out there. If we get stuck with these 2 other times all year, I don't really foresee any way that we'll be able to use many of them, if any of them at all. Most of our teams already play on Saturdays and won't pick up another time on Saturday afternoon. With U18 rep playing Sunday night, 7 to 8:30, there's simply no age group that we can stick out in that 8:30 to 10 time slot. If anybody here knows how minor hockey works, you know that if word gets out that we have unused ice that we are paying for, the downfall will be relentless. I can say confidently from past experiences that we would probably end up losing a few members over that. As far as I know, getting out of either of these ice times wouldn't create a gap in your guys' schedule for your workers. So other than, I guess, the loss in income from us paying for those ice, I don't believe that you would incur a further loss beyond that. My first year as president was the 21-22 season. Our membership at that time was a total of 92 kids in the organization. When I moved to the area back in 2011, I remember started playing pickup hockey Friday nights, and that arena was packed every weekend. Somewhere along the way, the spirit of hockey was lost in our community. Our board has been working hard to strengthen our membership and rebuild the spirit and sense of community. We have more than doubled those 92 members to date, with slightly over 200 members this season. I believe we're sitting at 204. I believe it, but it's 202, 203, 204. In the past 2 years alone, we've had 94 kids that have played hockey for the first time ever in their lives in our organization and on that ice surface. This year, we've also teamed up with the skating clubs in hopes of helping both of our organizations grow. We have a philosophy that whether kids are learning to skate to play hockey, or kids are learning to skate to go to the skating club, or just learning to skate, we want as many kids as possible learning to skate in the community. We're working very hard to bring as many people as we can and rekindle the spirit that once was. I had anticipated kind of going through the numbers of our growth and success in the last few years for ice contract wise. We've consistently grown our ice usage 40% and 60% in the last 2 years. Out of the ice users, we account for 65% of the ice in the building, but you guys are here every month. You guys know what those numbers are, so I don't need to spend time going through those with you. Even with these 2 ice times not required, we are still well above our ice rentals requirements from last year. And we do look to grow again next year, hopefully by 2 to 4 ice times if we keep getting the players in that we have been the last couple. In the past, we were able to adjust our ice schedules. In February and March of 2022, I think it was 2021. We had more than a dozen schedule alterations in those 2 months. And the only ones that we got penalties for were ones that were made within a 2-week period kind of thing, or with less than 2 weeks notice. I understand that from your guys' standpoint, this sort of needs to be looked at as a certain degree as running a business. You have policies and contracts in place for a reason. I'm a small business owner myself, so I perfectly understand that. I think at some point we need to look at the relationship aspect as well. The municipality and West Lorne Minor Hockey are essentially business partners through our relationship. Without you guys, we would not be able to survive. And without us, it would be a little bit more difficult, I think, on your guys' end too. If you allow us to reevaluate our contract for this season, either delete those times, or at the very least, I guess what I'm looking for is to open a conversation where we could possibly come to a mutual beneficial outcome. It would prove to be a gesture of good faith and commitment to our relationship. At the end of the day, growth is good for all of us. I think we've proved, West Lorne Minor Hockey has proved in the last few years, this year especially, what we're capable of achieving. If we can strengthen our relationship as organizations further, there's no telling what the future holds for us, the municipality, the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Any questions for Kevin? Guess not. It's time for a little discussion here, and I'll start. It's a kind of a difficult position we're in. I think everyone on this board wants to see minor hockey do well. We've had in the past had quite a few discussions about booking ice time to make sure. It puts us into a bit of a problem too. We have people that want ice that early in the year that we have to turn away if there's no ice available. really torn here on how we proceed here. I think we want to be fair with both sides. I represent my municipality who will pick up a portion of that deficit. And I think we all realize how scarce tax dollars are these days. So I don't know. I think we need to have a little discussion and see where we're going with this. So. Anyone else?
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, Jim. So understanding, and thank you, Kevin, very much for coming in and making that presentation. So understanding that, there is a contract and that there's a couple spaces that are no longer required. I get how the Sunday night one is likely very difficult to refill. But that Saturday afternoon one, is there an opportunity here to have essentially West Lorne Minor Hockey sublease that space out to perhaps a public skate that could be sponsored by local business people?
The issue with that, Bill, would be if West Lorne Minor Hockey's name is on the ice, you cannot be on the ice unless you're registered to a roster through OMHA. So if that's, a roster in another center, or listed as on ice help as a coach, something like that. Otherwise, they're not insured by OMHA and they're not covered under our insurance policy. So
is that something that West Lorne Minor Hockey would be willing to be there and represent in the spirit of filling that space?
Yeah, but it's nobody that's not part of a roster would be able to be on the ice. Like we've even had discussions, teams that wanted like around Christmas time to have like a parent skate. But any parents that aren't coaches or listed as on ice help wouldn't be able to be on that ice.
Okay.
So
Thanks,
nobody
Kevin.
that's part of the minor hockey system would be able to be out there because they wouldn't be insured.
Okay. That's all for now.
Mm-hmm.
Contracts. Yeah. It's a sticky situation, as Chair Ken mentioned. I think if we were to make changes, we'd be setting an example to other organizations that could possibly be coming in, wanting to book early ice. And they would also be on the hook. I'm not so sure how we would handle those other entities if they wish to make changes or cancel the contract. So I think it's a slippery slope. And we do have to really look at this as a business and generate revenue. As Councillor Bill mentioned, and it doesn't sound like it's possible where you guys could actually rent the ice out or have some other organization come in because of mandates, I guess, rules and regulations. We have the same problem with our organization. You step on the ice, you have to be registered with Skate Canada, so on and so forth. So yeah, it's I'm not so sure it's a good idea to start moving about in and out of contracts.
Through the chair, maybe let me provide a little bit of context to the municipality's point of view on this. We are certainly not against trying to work something out with minor hockey. We understand the position that they're in, and yes, the two times that we're talking about on the Saturday night and the Sunday night, while they would be hard for us to fill, especially the Sunday night, the Saturday night, we do already have a few that have come in that are taking up that spot, that are looking for that spot. So, and Kevin's correct. I mean, there is a full-time staff member. Like that's not going to necessarily mean that there's a staff member having to sit in the building and be there when there's nobody on the ice, but that we owe that staff member 40 hours a week. So that's going to change their schedule, right? We're going to have to adjust that staff member's schedule to you know, because there is no point in them being there for an hour and a half when there's nobody in the facility. So that is going to change that. The other part to this is it's not just minor hockey. This year, what we found is because when Adam is making up the schedule for the season, and you know, July, August, he's starting to put, you know, he's starting to try and fill all those gaps in. And because we want to make sure that our two local organizations, the both minor hockey and the skating club, get what they need for the season, right? So, you know, we reach out to them and say, so what is it you need? So for instance, this year, the skating club had originally asked for 4 hours a night, which was actually more than what they had in previous years. They wanted 5 to 9 Monday and 5 to 9 Wednesday. So fast forward to the end of September, almost the end of September, third week of September, when we finally get a contract, and we've gone from 8 hours of ice time to 3.5 hours of ice time. So we're now Monday from 5 to 6:30, and we're Wednesday from 5 to 7. So because we've held those 2 blocks of time open, now we have ice time that's available from 6:30 to 8 on Monday night, and 7 to 8 on Wednesday night. You know, we were able to move a few things down. So now we have, not only is that ice time that's not rented, it's a gap where we still have to have somebody in the facility, because there's people on the ice after that. So it's not like we can send that staff member home and turn around and have them come back an hour and a half later. So it makes it difficult when we're receiving these calls in July and August from other groups around that are interested in wanting to use the facility, and we're saying to them, you know, tentatively this has been set aside, we don't have this time available. And then once basically the season has started, now all of a sudden we're getting this time back, and it's very, very difficult to try and fill that. So yes, it's an expense. It would be an expense for minor hockey to have to cover that time. But at the same time, it on our end, it's lost revenue, and we've lost the ability to try and fill those spots. And like the chair mentioned, ultimately what that does is that just increases the deficit. At the end of the year, that increases the deficit for the arena, and that deficit is shared by municipality West Elgin and the municipality Dutton Dunwich. So that's just trying to provide some context as to why from our end, from a staffing end, why this puts us in a very, very hard spot when we're trying to be accommodating to these local groups. And then at the end of the day, it somewhat backfires on us. So
I just have a question. With the skating club not using that ice and changing what they had originally set aside, did they not sign the contract until late September?
So
Is that, and I assume that would have been because they weren't on the ice until that contract was signed. I'm just trying to understand where,
yeah,
you know, in late September, they cut that out and that was okay, but in October 1st, so it's just a matter of that contract was signed.
it's one contract was signed. Minor hockey had their contract signed. Skating club had waited. We had been trying to get that done, and they had waited and waited and waited, and then obviously signed a contract late in the month of September. So, you know, and I don't want to go down that path where now all of a sudden we have other organizations that are sandbagging too and waiting till the very last minute to try and, you know, hammer out exactly what they need before they sign a contract. Cause that doesn't do any of us any favors. I think, this needs to be a broader, this needs to be a bigger discussion than just these 2 times on Saturday and Sunday night. This needs to be a discussion moving forward into next season, how we approach. You know, do we set out timeframes? Do we set out deadlines like, okay, up to this point, we'll hold blocks of ice, and then, you know, after that, because ultimately what that does, people are looking for ice in the summertime, to book ice in the summertime, right? So does there need to be some kind of a deadline that we say, okay, after we'll hold tentative ice to this point, and after that we have to start trying to allocate that out to other places, and if you overcommit yourself on that, then unfortunately, if we can't find somebody to take that, then we would enforce that seasonal ice user policy. And
Just to address the situation with the skating club, as a rep, this has been a, pardon my expression here, been a cluster since May. With a new board, there were decisions made by not the board, individuals jumping forward and not keeping the board in the loop with what was going on. So that was a big issue, and with webinars and so on and so forth, Zoom meetings back and forth, things were just dragged along. The experienced coaches in the past spoke out front that you do not need to have this much ice time. And why would you do that? Anyways, it's sorted out, and yes, the contract was not signed until, I guess, late September. So, yeah. Not reaching out to individuals that had the experience did not help this situation at all. Having said that, it does put both organizations in a pickle.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Jim and Lee and everybody for sharing. So I suppose that there's opportunities here, in my view. First of all, an opportunity to look at next year and have discussions about how this process could be refined to benefit everybody. But another opportunity I see for this year standing, without having to go into deleting contracts and renewing them, because I understand the concern with that and I agree with it. West Lorne Minor Hockey has established a tremendous amount of goodwill this year for all of the work that they've done to build the club back up. And I understand that, you know, $13,000 is likely every little bit of profit that you were hoping to make this year to continue to build the club. So my thought is that perhaps we can work together on capitalizing on that goodwill that you have built, and perhaps doing a fundraiser for the club, supporting you in doing that, whether that's, you know, getting a license for a 50-50 or something along those lines. I see it as an opportunity not only to make that $13,000, perhaps to make even more. So I just put that out there as perhaps another way of putting addressing this year's issue, and then being able to move forward next year with perhaps a refined system that addresses the changes that are happening. So I put that out there in the stratosphere for all here to consider.
Yes, a question I have after listening to this, maybe this is something we can't make a decision today. Maybe we need to give some thought, give Adam a bit of time to see if there is any opportunity to rent the ice, and maybe we come back towards the end of the year and have a look at it and see where we are financially too. I mean, if we end up with a little better position on our financials than we had hoped, maybe we've got a little room to maybe split this with hockey or something so that, I mean, we all want to see minor hockey do well here, but we also have to put our other hats on and operate this board as a business on behalf of everyone. So I guess maybe that would be my recommendation as we leave this for a bit, see if there is a chance to rent ice and see where we are at the end of the year before we make a final decision. Go ahead.
Where we sit right now, I believe it's only been a week since minor hockey has given me the green light to start renting some of that ice times. And the month of October, that Saturday time slot there, other than this coming Saturday, the two after that, they've been deleted out of their contract because I have found other users. So I don't see too much of those Saturdays minor hockey being on the hook for. I needed that confirmation because I had phone calls, and I'm not gonna book them at 5:30, leaving at 4 to 5:30 open in hopes that they're gonna use it. So I have offered the 4 o'clock up. People are taking it, and they will continue to take it. The Sunday is definitely a hard sell.
Go ahead, Jim.
So basically, the Saturday 4 to 5:30 is out of the hands of minor hockey right now.
Yes, according to the ice user policy, if minor hockey does not require that ice, it has to be returned to the municipality. Minor hockey cannot sublet ice. It's for me to try and find users. And yes, they have confirmed with me that for the season, that ice time is open for use.
But through the chair, just to expand on that, minor hockey can't sublease their ice time. But certainly if minor hockey knew of an organization or that was looking for ice time, they could send them to Adam, or anybody here on the board could send them to Adam, and we could book that. So that essentially, when a seasonal user once they give us written notice that they do not require a certain block of time, that gets returned, comes back to the municipality. Municipality will do our best to fill that slot, and if we can fill that slot with something else, then that seasonal policy holder is off the hook for that cost of that block of time. So that's what we just started. Like Adam said, we've just started in the last few days here since we've got the green light that time was available. We've started reaching out, trying to find renters for that block.
So
Both
that's in everybody's ice rental agreement. So that's a revenue saver or expense saver, I guess, for minor hockey then, the hour and a half on Saturdays. Which would turn into how many dollars roughly?
6,000.
6,000? Some other organization now paying the $6,000 to us.
Yeah, you can look at it that way, or we're still out that money because those groups would just rent after that time slot as well, right? So those people that I've rented to for the Saturdays would have rented whether that time slot was open or not, but it helps minor hockey out renting that time slot.
So this other organization would prepared to come in at some other time and spend the 6,000. Right. Thanks, Adam.
Through the chair.
And oh, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm certainly prepared to look at it the first way as an opportunity to save Westland Minor Hockey $6,000 if we're talking about it, looking at it one way or the other. Certainly that's something that's a start.
And that's a benefit to us. Like Adam mentioned that those groups would have booked from, for that hour and a half after minor hockey. But that doesn't do us any good because like I said, then we have to have an operator in the facility for that dead ice time, only to have them there for the time after. So by moving those groups up into that earlier time slot, it does afford us the opportunity to get that operator out an hour and a half sooner. So that does, in a way that does help us. And sorry, through the chair, just, certainly the skating club, had they signed their seasonal contract when they would normally have signed it earlier, they would be in the same position as minor hockey is right now. So, well, and that's what I said before. I mean, that's not what we want to see here. We don't want to see everybody dragging their feet, right? Because at the end of the day, that doesn't do us any good.
I'm just curious, because like I said, back in 2022, we did have the ability to alter our ice times. That was when Emily was there, and throughout our playoffs, we were adding ice, altering ice, starting at 10 instead of 9. Did that contract and that policy change since then? I'm just curious what allowed us to alter those times and at that point, but now here. And I mean, I get it. I don't want to be in a situation where and you guys don't want us to be in a situation where throughout the season we're changing consistently our times, right? Because of away games and tournaments and whatever else. I'm not looking for that at all. I'm just, I guess, looking for clarification on why it was okay then and not now, I guess, if that policy changed or.
I believe at the time minor hockey came to the board and requested that to finish out that season, and the board made a decision to okay that for the rest of that season.
Yeah, because that was when Jeff Carmichael was our rep and Emily was here. So I'm just going through this and just curious, what's different now from then, I guess. So that was like a specific kind of a grace period where, because that was COVID too, I understand that too, right? Like
Yeah.
the season there was a break in the season and then we had to finish games and
Now,
it was crazy, but.
No, we do throughout the season. Terry comes to me with additional ice times, and last season, by the time we're all said and done and the ice was out, we probably had 8 to 10 ice contracts that had been signed through the year. Now, policy, I just add to their contract, but I ask for another signature on that contract. I don't make up a whole new contract, but yeah, with groups like that, we do add ice time, but I'm not subtracting ice time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate it. If we're going to be considering this in a little bit more detail over the next, until the next meeting, one question that I would have for you is what thoughts would minor hockey have to come up with solutions so that this isn't a recurring problem in subsequent seasons? I understand that, in this case, it was a sort of a one-off, but I'd like to know what the plan is going forward so that we don't encounter this problem again.
I think that this year was a bit of a unicorn in essence. Like I said, in September, the numbers were on the margin to have 2 teams. There was a lot of discussion in our board on whether or not we Because really, the way this all went down isn't good for anybody. It's not good for us. It's not good for you guys. It's certainly not good for those players, right? Out of those 6 or 7 players, we found, because obviously everybody's on the ice, all the teams are picked. At this point, for a player to be going to look for a place to play is very difficult. We managed to find spots for a bunch of those players, or those players managed to find a spot to play for the most part this year. I think anybody that wanted to, I'm not aware of anybody that wanted to go elsewhere that hasn't found somewhere to play. This was a culmination of a few different things. We had some stuff happening throughout the early tryout stages in other centers, because we have members that will go and try out in St. Thomas on an NRP or in Mount Bridges on an NRP and try and make an A team. And then there was some coaches in other centers that were trying to coach our players on how to be released from our organization and indicating to them things that were outside of the rules and telling them that we couldn't keep them here. Rep hockey is a residentially restricted thing, so anybody that lives within our area, basically, if they don't make one of those teams, they come back and play for us. So this essentially stemmed probably at least 3 or 4 of these players that left that put us in this situation stemmed from outside sources giving them misinformation on what could be. And then because we came back with OMHA and sort of re-explain the rules the way that they were intended to be, they didn't like those. And like I said, I mean, we had some players that just outright went to unsanctioned hockey and are playing outside of OMHA, and it was just a bad scenario all around. There was a lot of outside things that happened that kind of created this problem for us this year. So I think our board is a pretty realistic board. We wouldn't have made those decisions if we didn't, if we looked at it and we had 20 skaters for 2 teams in U18, it would have been a hard no. But like I said, we were on that margin where we really only needed 1 or 2 skaters to be where we were last year when we ran 2 teams, and we had some prospects, players coming from other centers again that didn't make their rep teams that could possibly come here and play if they still wanted to play rep hockey. A few of those players were interested in coming and for whatever reason decided to go elsewhere. And then we had these other players that ended up leaving and going to different organizations one way or the other kind of thing. So this year was essentially it was a tough year for us because we had, like I said, we had outside forces that were really creating a lot of drama and a lot of issues for our organization.
Thank you.
So going forward, Kevin, with those outside sources that kind of dictate sometimes, how do you get around that situation?
So this was in particular one person, and OMHA sent them a cease and desist letter and informed them that if they were going to continue acting the way that they were subject to a $5,000 fine and removal from the OMHA system. So it's not something that we can deal with because again, it's another organization. We can't go at another organization, but OMHA, because it had been happening with us and a couple of other centers, stepped in and essentially ordered the cease and desist for this individual. So it's something that has been dealt with on their level, but unfortunately the repercussions of what it did to us as an organization are already here, and we're having to deal with them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? I guess we have to kind of decide where we're going here, so I have made the suggestion that we kind of work with minor hockey, see how rentals go and see where we are maybe towards the end of the year, and if that makes sense to me, if it does to everyone else, I think we we're kind of caught in the middle. I think minor hockey can see both sides of this, and as can we. So I think that would be my suggestion. If we could do that, I think it might be the best way for everyone.
A question to Kevin again, excuse me, in regards to fundraising, generating revenues. Does minor hockey currently have a lottery license?
Yes, we do. We've got a few 50/50s and stuff open. Like I said, I think that the issue that we're gonna run into there is that our members are gonna want that money to go to usable ice or usable things rather than dead ice. So that's where, you know, for us, it's gonna be we're gonna be between a rock and a hard place. There's already a lot of members that are upset with the decision to fold the U18 local league team, even though we really didn't have much of a choice at the end of the day. So I guess I would hope maybe if it's possible to have maybe somewhat of a discussion, maybe at the next meeting as opposed to towards the end of the year. I think our members are gonna want a little bit more of an answer than just, if it's possible, then just to wait until the end of the year and see how it shakes out kind of thing. And then, you know, that would give everybody a bit of time, ourselves included, to come up with maybe some ideas on, you know, how we could approach this, I guess, to make it beneficial for everyone.
My second question to you, Kevin, is minor hockey registered with Jackpot City working bingos?
We've attempted to get in there, but we haven't been able to get in. I want to say even when I started my son in hockey in 2018, it was the discussion on the board, and they've been trying to get in, and to this date we haven't been able to get in, and because it's a tight thing and it's hard to get in, but once you're in, it's
a great
golden.
money maker. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. So, Kevin, I can completely appreciate that you're going back to your organization, with them wanting an answer, and you wanting, you know, a definitive timeline here. And I think that from the perspective of the committee here, we're also wanting a little bit of time in order to see how those dead ice spaces fill up, so that towards the end of the year, we can see what the spread is between the 13,000 and the amount of ice time that's filled up, so that as a committee that we can then decide, you know, if there is a gap there, if there's something further that we can do. So, you know, I suppose from my perspective, the message delivered back is that we are working on it, but we need to see, you know, how much of that time gets filled up, so that we can see what the next step would be, and how we can help minor hockey, address that.
Yeah.
I agree, Council Bill.
Kevin, are you happy with that, or if you take that back and didn't get a no, you didn't get a no, but you didn't get a yes.
I mean, it's not
Welcome
what
to
I was
politics,
hoping
yeah.
for when I came here this morning, but yeah, I understand how it is. I understand that it's not a decision that we can roll over and make immediately. But as long as, again, I would just hope that the discussion and the thought is there throughout the year, as opposed to just sort of, that was more, I guess my point was just to keep that as an open conversation.
Go ahead, Adam, you had.
Just brainstorming. As an option, we currently have Mondays from 6:30 till 8 that I have not signed a contract for with any group. And I also have Wednesdays from 7 till 8. As an option for that Sunday hour and a half, 8:30 to 10, would it be possible to relocate an hour to Wednesdays? Potential renters for Wednesdays are few and far between right now. And like Lee said, staff is sitting there already. So would it be possible to relocate an hour to that Wednesday time slot where younger kids potentially could use? And Sunday time slot, we won't have to staff because we can cut shift hours, but just as an option.
If I can just maybe speak a little further to that, that would probably help us a little bit. We would probably still have some ice times that maybe wouldn't be able to use by necessarily our teams. One other thing that we did run into this year was we just didn't have numbers for any kids in our U15 age group. So we do have a few of those kids that aren't playing elsewhere, and they're helping us out with on ice help and stuff like that to try and keep their skills up. And they are registered as on ice help, so it could give us an opportunity to give those, maybe some of those kids that are giving us their time, to get them out there and be able to play a little bit of scrimmage or something like that, right? To, again, gesture in good faith with those kids, hoping they're going to come back next year. And that would be a much more feasible time slot for them, as opposed to getting a 14-year-old out 8:30 to 10 on a Sunday. So that's something that I would be very happy with if it's considered.
Through the chair, I think that seeing as how this has all just come up in the last few days, and a lot can change in 4 weeks, I think, between now and our next meeting scheduled for November. Certainly staff can come back to the board in November with a report, an update. But in the time being, I think if minor hockey, if Kevin and Terry work with Adam, I think there's been some good ideas kicked around here this morning. And like I said, 4 weeks is goes a long ways to seeing where we're at as far as filling time slots and things like that. So I think things could change a lot. So if the board agrees, and if we put a decision off until November, and then staff can come back with a report in November, and we'll see where we're at that time.
That makes sense to me. I guess if the rest of the board, I don't think we need a motion. It's just staff, just direction to staff to come back with a report, and we can talk about it next meeting. I think you can see there's a movement here to work together as much as we can without trying to hurt anyone too bad financially. So I think if we give us at least one more month, we'll have a better idea. So if that's fine, we'll call it staff direction and go on. It's good. Everybody's good with that? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time. And yeah, in the meantime, if there's any questions, you can either reach out to Terry, or most people have my contact info. You're more than welcome to reach direct as well. So.
No, we're good. Thank you.
We'll go on to the next thing on the agenda is Craft Hockeyville. Who's doing the report on that one? B.
So through the chair, I can just provide a quick update. So the subcommittee has met with an architectural firm called ACI Arch, and they do these kinds of arena retrofits, upgrades, expansions all over Canada. Obviously, when they heard that we had been successful in our bid for Craft Hockeyville, they reached out because they're in the business. To this point, they offered to provide some initial drawings, some initial concept that would be beneficial. The committee met with them once just to go through some ideas. They asked a lot of questions. What do we need? Where do we need it? Where's the room that we have? They came to us at that meeting with a couple of initial concepts, which a couple of them might work and a couple of them, for reasons that they didn't know at the time, wouldn't work. We didn't feel would work. So they kind of went back to the drawing board. They've given us what they're trying to do is to give us, now that they understand what it is that we really want or what we're looking for, they're going to give us like a base. Here's your entry level. This is just to try and meet some of the needs that you're looking for. Here would be kind of the most bang for your buck type thing. And then here's the big, right? If you want to spend, we're talking a few $100,000 to $1 million to, 5 or 10 million, right? So they're giving us those three ranges. And then certainly we'll bring that, once we get those concepts, we'll bring that back to the board. And they understand at this time that the work that they're doing is being donated, I guess you would call it. Like if once the board decides how they wish to proceed and what they wish to proceed with, they understand that if they were to be that they would have to be successful in a RFP to move forward and actually manage that project. So at this time right now, the conversations that we had, they're doing that on the house, so to speak.
That's good. I think we all noticed the 4 concepts that were at the Craft Talkieville. Nice to see that we're moving ahead with that and get them more formalized. And I suppose once we get that, we'll get costs and have a lot better idea where we're going and when. So good, very successful thing. A lot of effort put in by staff and certainly from the hockey side standpoint, I know I'm sure there were some people who were glad it was all over for sure. But good. It was a good project for a lot of different reasons. So. Okay. Anything else on that? Anybody want to ask questions of Lee or talk about that?
I think Lee mentioned that maybe the last meeting or one of the meetings that there was an idea of adding on, or that would be additional cost, of course. Any indication which direction they would be adding on if we decide to go that way, or to the back or to the west, or?
Well, initially in some of the early concepts that they gave us, they showed an addition out the back. It would be kind of the southeast corner of the building towards the ball diamond, but that would really interfere with things in the park area. We, after having those conversations as a group with them that day, certainly we're limited by the hydro corridor, the ball diamonds and Zamboni room out the back, the parking area and all the HVAC equipment. So I think that through those discussions, it was decided that probably the best place, if we were to look at an actual expansion of the building, would be either that south side facing the parking lot or the west side facing Graham Road, in that area. Yep. So there is room out the front for some type of a new entry system. It's going to be it's how can we, there is room for a small expansion. It's how can we use some of the space inside the building, repurpose it for something. Like there was discussions around the canteen area. We all know that probably, at this point right now is not being utilized. And will it be utilized? And even if it could be utilized, would it be better used for dressing room? Like, would it be better used for something else? So that's really what we're trying to do right now, is to look at the space that we have. Certainly an expansion is when you start talking, big dollars. not to say that that's not where we're gonna end up. It may be something that, you know, we have to look at down the road, but, you know, trying to maximize the space that we have in the building currently. And then to suit the needs of the organizations that are using it.
Okay, I guess the next thing is staff operations update. So Adam, is that you? Okay, go ahead.
The arena renaming.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been put off with COVID. So just trying to get a committee together now and restart that. The hopes is for 2024 for it to be finalized and everything ready to go. So there's a lot of planning involved with it. There's trying to figure out where we're at, where everyone had left off. So we're hoping in the next couple of weeks to have a meeting and just kind of get our thoughts together, and maybe there might be some new ideas that come forward at that point as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. And sorry, I missed that. So anything else from staff?
Nope, we're just trying to get into a normal schedule now that Craft Hockeyville is past us. No, this week we've been trying to train a new part-time operator to take in shift and a half on the weekends. And most groups are just getting underway. Some of our private rentals are starting now that Thanksgiving is behind us, so and I'm just still working on trying to fill in gaps in the schedule, but everything seems to be operating okay.
Thanks, Adam. Lee, anything from your side?
Yeah, through the chair, I just wanted to make mention that as far as the scheduled public skates go, they are booked now. We have all the public skates filled, sponsored right through to the end of the season, and we do actually have a waiting list right now of individuals, groups, businesses that are wishing to sponsor as well. So that's good news for us, and thank the community for their support.
Any of those spots would be interested on Sunday, 8:30 to 10. Just a thought.
Good one. Okay. There's nothing else. Anything else you want to talk about? I know we're not supposed to talk about stuff not on the agenda, but we'll just open it up just in case there is. And doesn't look like it. Nobody jumping up. So I guess I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Terry. Bill seconded it. All in favor? Terry. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bill.